First of all, I want to thank Gino Kenny, who consistently brings this issue to the floor of this House. We need more politicians to show the leadership of Gino Kenny, and indeed those in the gallery here today, to say to you that you're going to change this country for the better with your advocacy and your support for bills like Gino has brought today. I'm at this minister for about 10 years. About 10 years ago, I was sat down by Anna Quigley of Citywide, who told me what decriminalisation all meant. And she said it's not about the decriminalisation of drugs as much as it's about decriminalisation of people. And what this debate really is about, it's actually about people more than it is about drugs. Just for the record, we absolutely support this bill. The Labour Party believes in decriminalisation of the drug user, in the legalisation and regulation of cannabis as well. So why is it about people, and why don't we get anywhere? It's because the institutions of the state, those status quo warriors, don't like the people that this affects. They just don't like them. I've often said that if the number of cattle in Ireland died from an overdose the same rate as people died of drugs, we'd have a national conversation, everything will be shut down, there'll be emergency cabinet meetings. But because we just don't like the people who take drugs, that's why we don't do anything about it. And that's why, we have a situation where you can use dehumanising, derogatory terminology about people who take drugs all the time and never be called up on it. Because those who are primarily affected by this issue are disproportionately people from lower socioeconomic backgrounds. They're disproportionately migrants, they're disproportionately people from the LGBT community, they're disproportionately people with disabilities. Why? Because they're seeking connection. Because what we don't like talking about is trauma, hurt, abuse. Things within inside ourselves that we find something to use to connect. Right? But we don't like talking about all those things. And we dehumanise and we denigrate those who take drugs, and we do anything we can to stop the discussion about the person. So let's talk about the people. It's been mentioned that there was 12,000 charges there in 2022. That's about 6,400 people were put in front of a courtroom and accused by the state for being in possession of something that they're going to use themselves. I was Minister for Drugs at one point. I was encouraged to go down to the drug court. This is kind of progressive. It has a different approach. I went down to the drug court, I sat in the back bench, and all I saw was a court full of poor, sick people. Poor, sick people don't belong in a courtroom. 70% of our drug cases in our courts are for possession for personal use. What an absolute waste of Garda time. It is a complete and utter waste of Garda time, because what it's actually about is a war on people. It's not a war on drugs. It's a war on the people who take drugs. And it's a total misunderstanding of the nature of addiction. If we just ban this stuff, people will stop taking it. And we'll just arrest the people who take it and everything will be fine. Because our society believes, these status quo warriors believe that they're just not powerful enough to do anything about it. And then we witnessed it. I witnessed it on Saturday myself. I was walking through town, top of Tava Street, two guards searching a young fella. How demonstrative, how in plain sight they were sort of demonstrating to the world that this person has no power, and I can do this to this person because it's about drugs, but it's not actually about the drug, it's about the person that we don't like. That's what it showed to me. And, a Cathaoirleach newsflash, people in every walk of life, people from all over the country, people in every income bracket, people in politics, people in journalism, people in the judiciary, people in the guards take drugs. But they don't end up in court. Because this is actually a point about social justice. The people who end up in front of the courts are those who society feels don't have power. So this is actually a discussion about power and about people. And do we really think, honestly, that we're going to affect a person's life for the better by giving them a criminal charge? Are we genuinely thinking that giving a young person or a person of any age who is taking something for their own personal use a criminal charge that's going to correct their behaviour? What you're more likely to do is to make that person less trust the state. Trust the state less. Trust the agencies of the state less. To separate themselves from the state and actually to find themselves more in the clutches of the gangs and the people who are peddling this stuff. I mean, if you're a young person, late teens, early 20s, and you find yourself in court, are you going to have a positive view of the guards, a positive view of the judicial system, a positive view of society? Or are you going to double down on this behaviour of yours and make a particular life choice at that point in time? This policy of ours of criminalisation, it's making a lot of people rich and it's making a lot of people miserable. And it's not working. But it only continues to work because the people it affects are disproportionately poorer, disproportionately less powerful. And I know what happens in Middle Ireland, where people are horrified by politicians using words such as decriminalisation. What we're actually talking about here is people. And I wish those people who are horrified by politicians such as perhaps Gino Kenny, myself, and Gary Gannon and others who are talking about this would actually realise that it's all around you. It's in your community. It's in your family. The hypocrisy of this debate is stunning. There is addiction in every single family in Ireland. The question fundamentally is, if somebody in your family had an addiction issue or had a drug use issue, who would you call if you loved that person in your family? Who would you ring? Would you ring a guard first? Or would you ring a counsellor or a nurse or a doctor first? But clearly all of us would want to ring somebody who might help and show that person compassion. So let's be clear what the Labour Party wants. We want, actually, when it comes down to it, the legalisation and regularisation of cannabis. Let's realise that this drug is actually an awful lot less harmful than the drug which is legal, which costs the state about $3.8 billion a year, which is a contributory factor in abuse, in violence, in drink driving debt, and antisocial behaviour, which is alcohol, which is perfectly legal. And we need to wise up and think fundamentally about the people affected by this issue, who maybe not be, who heretofore we didn't think were powerful enough. But I think now the gallery today will demonstrate to all of us just how people affected by this or who care about this are finding their power and finding their voice.
Thank you, Deputy.